law enforcers, including police, prosecutors, and judges, social service providers, including social workers and medical officers, civil society organizations advocating against OSEC and rehabilitating survivors in communities, private sector actors, including computer shop owners, Association of Local Internet Service Providers, social media companies, telecommunication companies, and other members of the information and communications technology industry, travel and tourism industry, transportation services, including transport network, vehicle services, and financial intermediaries, including money transfer and remittance centers. Children and young and youth themselves, and representatives of victim survivors. Second, we recommend that the other OSEC bills and similar resolutions filed at the House of Representatives be factored in to help ensure efficiency and harmonization of efforts. Third, we propose to create a technical working group that will review all information and reports shared by stakeholders and will examine how existing government programs and policies address or fail to address OSEC. And finally, legislative recommendations and solutions must be provided based on the assessment of the technical working group and findings of the inquiry. We are grateful to the committee for including us in this process. We look forward to succeeding meetings and continue to stand with you in the fight against child sexual abuse and exploitation. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Selena Fortich. Thank you for that presentation. Can you please kindly furnish the committee a copy of your presentation, ComSec?
Yes, ma'am. We will post it into the Viber group of the committee members, ma'am. We already have a copy of her presentation, and we will post it for the members later after the meeting.
Thank you very much, ComSec. Thank you, Ms. Fortich. Again, thank you, Plan International. I'd like to acknowledge our members, the members of the committee. Kong Ana Villarasa Suarez is also here. Kong Nela Aguinaldo, Kong Sara Ilago, and Kong Arlene Rosas. Good afternoon. Let us proceed. May we hear from UNICEF?
Yes, Madam Chair. Attorney Mitch is here from UNICEF. Attorney Mitch Munoz Quezon from UNICEF.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation today, but we will share the policy paper that we have developed together with Ateneo Human Rights Center and CRN during the next meeting, where we will discuss the challenges encountered in addressing this problem. But for now, we would like to commend the House of Representatives, especially Your Honor, for coming up with this House Resolution number 1118, and we fully support this House bill. Further, we also want to comment that maybe we could also expand the coverage, or to include other agencies or private sector that were not considered during the adoption and drafting of the Republic Act 9775, such as the social media companies. And of course, we would like to consider the inclusion of money business services, EMIs, and virtual currency platforms, and the other inclusions, the other aspects that we want to address. We will be sharing it next meeting, Your Honor. And for now, we would like to show and commit our support to this endeavor. Thank you.
I'd like to know if you also would like to expand the coverage in including our telcos, the telco firms.
Yes, Your Honor. I think the telco firms are already here, and they are in the 9775. Yes, Your Honor. And of course, other financial institutions that play a role, or at least their platform is being utilized by perpetrators to commit this crime, Your Honor.
Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you po.
Child Rights Network. Child Rights. The
Yes,
representative.
ma'am. We have Miss Tony Flores from the Child Rights Network. Miss Tony.
Good afternoon po, Madam Chair, honorable representatives and guests. On behalf of the Child Rights Network po, we commend and support the resolution to conduct an oversight on OSEC-related laws. And we have submitted today the matrix that was provided, and there we have the inputs of some of the members of the Child Rights Network. And for the purposes for today, let me just share and highlight some of the inputs. One of the problems that were highlighted by CRN is the need to clarify what cyber tips indicate. Reliance on cyber tips data to evaluate the status of investigation and prosecution of OSEC cases could be misleading. And some of the recommendations from the Child Rights Networks are the following. One is to adopt the term online sexual abuse and exploitation of children to cover sexual abuses which do not necessarily involve some kind of exchange. In the matrix that we have submitted, we also provided the definition that we would like to recommend. Next is for the committee to focus its investigation on the following topics. Number one, detection and apprehension. 2 is investigation and prosecution. 3, victim intervention and support. And 4, education. We also recommend to inquire on the relationship of the related executive and law enforcement agencies, financial institutions, social media networks, and telecommunication companies, and to define to define the duties of an information and communication technology service provider, or ICTSP. Next is to exercise oversight on the obligations, duties, and implementation of the DSWD and the member agencies of IACAC-P, and also the role of the Philippine National Police and the National Bureau of Investigation as provided under RA number 9775. Next is to discuss the issue on the non-compliance of ISPs on their obligations under the law. In relation to this, the committee should exercise its oversight on the effectiveness of regulation of relevant agencies on the stakeholders of OSEC in the private sector. Another recommendation is to also give focus to intervention and assistance that should be provided to child victims. And lastly, we would also like the committee to look into Executive Order number 893 of 2010, or promoting the deployment and use of Internet Protocol version 6, wherein each device or gadget will have a unique IP address. It is not yet implemented, but it could prove useful to look into this on how it could, on the role that it could play in protecting our children against OSEC. That will be all, and we also would like to express to echo and support the positions of UNICEF and Plan International, which are also members of the Child Rights Network. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Oh, man. Thank you, Ms. Tony Flores of Child Rights Network. Thank you very much. ComSec, let's proceed with our government organizations.
Yes, Madam Chair, to give us an overview of the problem on OSEC, we are very honored to have from the Office of USEC Villar. They made a presentation for us. We have Attorney Yvette Coronel who will do the presentation.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. Madam Chair, with your permission, will be presenting today an overview of the online sexual exploitation of children in the Philippines. I'll just share my screen. So, may I proceed, Madam Chair? Thank you. So for this report, Your Honors, it is actually a compilation of several reports coming from the member agencies of the IACAT, which operates as an interagency council. So we gathered reports from the DSWD, IACAP, the Anti-Money Laundering Council, and the International Justice Mission. So before we proceed with the statistics, allow me first to present how we define OSEC in the context of trafficking. So this definition covers the elements that is found under the Anti-Trafficking Law, or our Republic Act 9208 as amended. It's important to know this because, Your Honors, there is no set or standard definition yet under our laws of online sexual exploitation of children. That's why we are very happy that this hearing is being conducted now by the Honorable Committee. Online sexual exploitation can be committed if these elements are present. Under it's considered as qualified trafficking because a victim are children. It's also covered under Section 4A and B of the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act. So if a child is obtained or hired or offered the purposes of sexual exploitation and sexual abuse, and these are published or transmitted online for consumption of a third party, then we consider it as OSEC. So usually it's committed when photos, recorded videos, or live streaming videos are transmitted online. Other laws that are pertinent that are also involved can be under RA 7610, the Anti-Child Pornography Act, of course, RA 9775, and the Cybercrime Prevention Act. In terms of numbers, so there's a lot of data of incidents where we can get to measure the scope of OSEC in the Philippines. So one of those indicators is IP addresses. So this number is from the IJM study, the International Justice Mission study, which was conducted in partnership with IACAT. So they gathered information from 2010 up to 2018 on the number of IP addresses that are linked to OSEC, or child sexual exploitation images. And they found that there's a steady rise in the number of IP addresses that are linked to OSEC, or IP addresses that may host these kinds of images. So, Your Honors, as if you would see from this data, even before the pandemic, which happened in 2020 and which is still happening now, there's a steady rise or increase from 2013 up to until now. There's a steady rise or increase in the number of IP addresses identified for OSEC-related activities. And this reached a peak of about 4,800 IP addresses in 2017. For commercial sexual exploitation, IP addresses are also identified from 2014 to 2017, and again, there's a steady increase from those years. This data now is for commercial sexual exploitation of children, not necessarily OSEC. So from the study of the IJM, based on global law enforcement case data, it confirms that the Philippines is a global hotspot or epicenter for OSEC. Global law enforcement data shows that Philippines received over 8 times as many OSEC case referrals compared to other countries. So as you can see, there's really a huge number of referrals made by global law enforcement partners. So these are case referrals, Your Honors, not anymore IP addresses. Compared to other countries such as Mexico, Brazil, and India, Philippines has really received more case referrals for OSEC cases from global law enforcement partners. Now, we have data also to show that from 2019 to 2020, there's a comparative increase in the numbers of operations conducted and rescues involving OSEC-related crimes. So this data is now from the Philippine Internet Crimes Against Children Center, which is a partnership between PNP and NBI, as well as the numbers from the NBI Anti-Human Trafficking Division. So if you would see, Your Honors, that from 2019, from a number of 36 operations carried out by the PICAC, it increased to 58 in 2020. And there's also a significant increase in the number of victims rescued from 120 in 2019 to 172 in 2020. Bearing in mind also that in 2020, we had the lockdowns related to COVID-19. Same with the data on NBI, there's also an increase from a mere 2 operations in 2019. It ballooned to 14 in 2020, and then with 19 victims rescued from just 4 victims rescued in 2019. Again, this shows, Your Honors, the increase in PICAC operations from 2015 up to 2020. Just reiterating the numbers shown earlier, from 12 victims rescued to a high of 170 in 2020. Another data set that we can get to measure the prevalence or the number of OSEC activities in the country is through the suspicious transaction reports from the Anti-Money Laundering Council. So this data is provided to us by the AMLC, and this is also culled from the study that they conducted in 2019 covering STRs or suspicious transaction reports for the years 2015 to 2018, and then they did another post-study this year just to compare the data from the initial study. So it shows that from 2019 to 2020, again, there's an unmistakable increase in the rise of STRs or suspicious transaction reports. The suspicious transaction reports, Your Honors, are the ones submitted by the covered persons under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. So, so this is the graph showing the number of the STRs and where it is coming from. So this indicates that the highest number of STRs reported to the Anti-Money Laundering Council came from the money service businesses, or what we commonly know as the remittance centers. So these are the Western Unions, the Palawan Pawn Shop, and the other money transfer services. The next number that the highest reporting covered persons are the electronic money issuers, or what we know of as the GCash. That's just an example, the most common example, GCash. And then we have banks, and then the virtual currency exchanges. I'd like to point out, Your Honors, that the new data here compared to the study that they did covering periods 2015 to 2018, the new significant data here is the electronic money issuers and the virtual currency exchanges, indicating that this is a current modus, or this might indicate a rise in the usage of these platforms in the years to come. Previously, this was not flagged as a significant number, but now it is there in the data of the AMLC. What else does this data shows us is that the usual mode of payment or payout for these kinds of transactions of OSEC is done through the money service businesses or through money remittances rather than banks. Why? Because it's easier to transact with money services businesses. They are everywhere. They are accessible even to the barangays. So that's why we see a large number of STRs coming from money service businesses. For cyber tip line reports, another data set where we can see or we can infer a rise in the number of OSEC related activities is through the cyber tip line reports. These cyber tip line reports came from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NICU, an organization based in the United States. These cyber tip reports, whenever their ISPs are also mandated to report to them if any OSEC activity are found within their platform. And when those reports come in and they see that there is a Philippine nexus, they refer us to the Philippine point of contact, which is the Office of Cybercrime. So this data is from that information, Your Honor. So the cyber tip line reports would show that there is also an increase from over 400,000 in 2019. It ballooned to over 1.2 million in 2020. But also, it's also important to know that this number is just reports. From that number, the cyber tip line reports yielded only about 9 cases referred to OOC by the PICAC for investigation. I believe one of our colleagues from the OOC is present. If maybe she can expound on this, on how the cyber tip line reports are triaged and assessed for law enforcement purposes. But again, this number cannot be the significant rise in the number of cyber tip line reports are also important, notwithstanding the fact that only 9 cases were referred for law enforcement activity. Now, in terms of victim typology, how do we, what has the years of study from the IJM report gathered is that the median age or the range of victims for OSEC is usually 11 years old, with the highest number of 21% identified for the age group of 13 to 15. So victim range is from 1-year-old to 31 years old. And just this February 2020 of last year, we identified the youngest victim that was rescued, which is about 25 days old, Your Honor, so less than 1 month. What is significant also to note about this data is that it differs from the commercial section, the establishment-based sexual exploitation or street-based prostitution, which shows that there are higher number of female victims at 96%, and then only about 4% male. We see that there is a rise in the number of male victims identified. So just 86% females, but more and more males are also being victimized, males and boys being victimized for OSEC. The IJM study also noted and found that OSEC is usually a family-based crime. How do they carry this out? Usually, it's in 41% of the cases that form part of the IJM study, the biological parents were the main traffickers or facilitators of the crime, while 42% are other relatives. And usually, when these cases happen, 56% of the victims are related. So sibling groups or those that are related like by some other familiar relationship like cousins. And they are usually rescued together. So the rescues are usually done through an entrapment operation. And if you would see in the news when these operations are carried out, several victims are rescued, so they are usually related to one another. Another significant data that came from the study is that the abuse often lasted for years. So that is really what is alarming. Before these victims are identified, they would have been abused already for about 4 years. 3 to 4 years or 1 to 2 years. The highest number of abuse identified before they were rescued is 1 to 2 years, which is about 47%. That is a significant number because 1 to 2 years of abuse for OSEC is already very alarming. For customer typology, who are the usual customers of OSEC? So from the study of the IJM, it was found that in all cases that form part of the study, the main customer or the one that is purchasing this OSEC or the one that are transacting OSEC are males. They are all men ranging from 42 to 72 years old. OSEC is also largely a transnational crime and they are usually foreigners. So the highest number of customers identified came from the United States at 34%, and then followed by Sweden and Australia. For the trafficker or the one that is facilitating the OSEC crime here in the Philippines, this is the typology identified by the study. So they are 66% of the traffickers are female. Majority of them are female. Median age 27 years old, but the range is from 15 to 76. And then 96% are all Filipinos. They are Filipino nationals with only 5 traffickers belonging to a foreign nationality. In terms of hotspots, so these are the identified areas where OSEC happens. In terms of operations, there are a lot of areas covered. You would see it's very dispersed. It's not concentrated on one island alone. So from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, there are a lot of areas covered, but a high concentration in Central Luzon and Pampanga, in Southern Luzon, as well as in Cebu and Davao del Sur. These are just for operations. In terms of cases filed, we have identified cases in Region 3, again, which correlates to the number of operations found in Pampanga, in NCR, in Region 7, Region 13, and Region 10. So, predators, how do they operate? How do they usually carry out this crime? Usually they connect through an online platform. There are certain pedophile groups and adult websites identified, such as Asian27.com, Batang Masarap Spotted, Samahan ng Mahilig sa Bata. These are usually Facebook groups but now are taken down by the platform. Another facilitating factor is that all traffickers are known to communicate in English, which means that the Philippines also has a large speaking population, and that's a significant enabling factor for the commission of OSEC. The ability to communicate in English with these customers and the traffickers. Now, how do law enforcement track these violations? So there are several ways. Online surveillance, undercover work, reports from witnesses, and tips from foreign counterparts and tips from money services. What we know is that these kinds of activities are usually committed through the dark web, but with the recent data that is no longer true, because even with these are now carried out in the social media platforms as well. Also, in terms of PICAC data and law enforcement data, most of the referrals or most of the cases that they've handled came from a tip or a referral from a foreign police counterpart. So they would know of such cases only when they have been tipped by a foreign counterpart. Now, a significant number of cases are also now coming from money service businesses because there is also increased knowledge in that sector, largely through the Anti-Money Laundering Council. They've been working together with this money service businesses platform, sharing information about their study so that they can in turn actively report their suspicious transactions. Now, with this, with that, Your Honors, now what are the challenges in combating OSEC? Certainly, since this is a new type of crime that has emerged in the recent years, it's a new type of committing trafficking. There are a lot of challenges in terms of combating it. First of all is, of course, it's in the news lately, the non-fulfillment of ISPs of their responsibilities under Section 9 of RA 9775. And certain limitations encountered by law enforcement agents in conducting surveillance. As you know, this is committed largely online, so there are a lot of challenges to our law enforcement in terms of investigation. For ISPs, the NTC, National Telecommunication Commission, have issued in 2015 a memorandum circular mandating them to comply with Section 9. And just recently, they were again mandated to comply with their responsibilities under Section 9. And I think over the weekend, the NTC already issued show cause orders to the ISPs regarding this matter. So for IACAT, we have been adopting this response plan to trafficking and OSEC. We added a fifth P of policy. So it's usually prevention, prosecution, protection, and partnership. But we added policy also, given the fact that we give importance to policy making in combating OSEC, especially since it's an emergent crime. So for prevention, the IACAT has advocated for the issuance of circulars on the increased risk to women and children caused by the pandemic since last year. Also, we have intensified the use of online platforms to increase awareness in OSEC and increased awareness in the use of the hotlines. So if you would remember last year when everybody shifted to online platforms, we did the same by intensifying awareness campaigns through Facebook, and other on social media platforms. We have also carried out improved and sustained LGU involvement together with the DILG, given that LGU involvement is very important in combating this crime because the way that the crime is committed largely depends on and the way that it can be reported is largely dependent on the ability of the community to spot these kinds of crimes in their own localities. We have also conducted continuous capacity building programs to different stakeholders, frontliners, and duty bearers, such as social workers and prosecutors, to prevent and handle OSEC cases. So with that, we saw a 92% conviction rate for OSEC. The highest number we've identified is in, which is about 89 convictions for OSEC. For protection programs, we have continued the implementation of various structural mechanisms and support systems and increased investment on victim-centered investigation approach, such as the use of video in-depth interview kits or videos for rescued victims of OSEC that are minors. For partnership, we have continued our sustain cooperation with international and local partners. So as the IACAT, as is structured, is that it works under an interagency approach. So in 2019 also, we saw the establishment of the PICAC, which synergize the efforts of PNP, WCPC, or the Women and Children Protection Center, and the NBI ATRAT in terms of working on OSEC cases. So the PICAC is now handling all of the OSEC cases identified in the Philippines. We have also intensified coordination with the relevant government agencies such as AMLC, as mentioned, and the information that are coming from this agency, the Anti-Money Laundering Council, is really very helpful for law enforcement investigation. In terms of policy, we have continued advocacy for the issuance of several amendatory measures. We have recommended amending the Republic Act 9208 or Republic Act 10364, which was last amended in 2013, and since then a lot of developments have happened. Certainly OSEC again is of course not mentioned or not identified in the law, which again requires specific legislation to update our laws in terms of fighting this new type of crime. There's also a pending recommendation from the AMLC to lower the threshold for remittances because the threshold for reporting of covered persons is really significantly higher. But as you know, the remittances for these types of crime or the payouts for these types of crime are significantly lower. So with this recommendation, covered persons will automatically have to report to AMLC those kinds of transactions once they see that it is suspicious in nature. This pending OOC and NBI ATRAD recommendation for NTC action is already complied with, as you know, with the directive from the President for the NTC and the ISPs to comply with their obligations under 9775. Specifically, what are the duties of the ISPs under Section 9? It is to notify the law enforcement within 7 days upon knowledge that its server or facility or platform is being used for child pornography, and also to preserve evidence for purposes of investigation. The most contested duty is, of course, the installation of available technology to intercept or block access to child pornography, because as we heard from our ISP partners, is that it's very costly or very costly to install this technology, and also they lack manpower to really just man this kind of technology to intercept and block access to child porn without, you know, disabling the whole platform itself. So for that, our main recommendation again is to direct NTC. This was already complied with. Another recommendation is to certify as priority the passage of the amendatory bill to the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act, specifically to empower, you know, our law enforcement agents to conduct better surveillance, interception, and recording of communications. Because as of now, they are not allowed to do that under the Anti-Wiretapping Act. The amendatory law will also create a mechanism for more private sector involvement and to broaden the membership of IACAT. Another main recommendation is the issuance of an executive order. Well, this is really for the executive department, a more collaborative approach by the main agencies involved in this. Again, another recommendation is the establishment of a case management protocol because of the significant nuances that are involved in OSEC cases. So there's a need to establish a specific case management protocol for this type of crime and handling victim survivors. For prevention, there's a need to streamline information campaign on OSEC. probably under the PCOO with the participation of all stakeholders and agencies. As you know, the way that OSEC is committed is very diverse as well. Recently, we saw the rise in the number of self-generated images. So specific information campaigns must also be targeted towards this different kinds of commission of OSEC. A cross-cutting recommendation is, I'll just mention it briefly, is the strengthening IACAT by providing permanent positions, providing more agents to conduct surveillance and enforce the law, and providing additional confidential funds for this purpose. So that is all, Your Honor. I hope I have the presentation is adequate for this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Yvette Coronel of the Interagency Council Against Child Pornography. Thank you very much. May we hear now from the Council for the Welfare of Children?
I'm sorry, Attorney, next po is the Interagency Council on Child Pornography.
From the
Yes.
Attorney Yvette Coronel. I'm sorry. Now let's hear from Attorney Christine Padilla.
Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, the honorable representatives, and the distinguished guests. On behalf of USEC Mineri, I will be presenting the initial recommendation of the Council to herein Resolution 1118. Please note that yesterday, the Council, the IACAP, has submitted to the committee a position paper expressing its gratefulness and full support to the efforts of the Revered Committee in filing this resolution. So in gist, the recommendations of the council members of IACP are as follows. Number one, the of the committee that there should be an explicit provision indicating accomplices and accessories of online child pornography, clearly detailing its scope and boundaries. So we are also recommending that there should be a strict adherence to the responsibility of the internet service providers, or the ISP, as provided in Section 5 in relation to Section 9 of RA 9775, which we have to enforce. Please note also that at present, the Council is filing a test case, given the a test case in enforcing the adherence of these ISPs to as mandated in the law. So under number 3, we're recommending that RA 9995 must be amended to be more child inclusive. At present, the provision of RA 9995 is merely talking about persons, and it's not actually distinguishing children, and therefore when we speak of consent as a requirement in the commission of the offense, there's no distinction whether the person giving a consent is actually a child or someone over 18. So it is also recommended that live streaming must be explicitly mentioned in the coverage, given that in the current law's coverage, what is stated is merely broadcasting, which when referred to is actually referring only to recorded materials. Fourth recommendation of the council is to make or to amend 7610, so it may be updated to the more, and it should be at par with the advancements of information, communication, and technology. There is also a recommendation through the amendment of 7610, to strengthen the provision of temporary custody to cover the DSWD, the LSWDO, the registered and licensed NGOs. So the provision of this temporary shelter may be more inclusive and would involve other stakeholders. So it is also recommended that there must be a centralized reporting and monitoring system for OSEC cases. And as we can see in the current pandemic, it is undisputable that the benefits brought about by technology, and equally it is also it has also been the platform for inclusive opportunity. So on that note, the council would like to respectfully inform the honorable committee that the members of the council are pooling its resources and is in the process of developing a more accessible and available reporting and monitoring platform for OSEC cases. So the overall recommendation of the council is that for the committee to consider that instead of amending, we consider repealing the existing laws and create a new law unifying and streamlining the existing laws that we have now and make it more adaptive to the existing technologies, the digital or otherwise, make it fluid as well for the future advancements. So again, the IACAP is expressing its full support and will be attending future meetings as the committee may request. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Christine Padilla of IACAP. Thank you very much. Let us proceed now with the Council for the Welfare of Children, Attorney Carla Villadolid.
A pleasant afternoon, Madam Chair, and to the honorable members of the Committee on the Welfare of Children. So on behalf of ED Mitch Kahayon Uy and CWC, I will be sharing or reading our position paper. CWC supports House Resolution number 1118. The strict implementation of quarantine measures confined us in the four corners of our homes and made our daily lives reliant on the internet. As a result, CWC realizes the unnerving rise in the cases of OSEC in the country. This may be imputed to the COVID-19 pandemic, which all the more opened gates to expose children to greater risk online. While we applaud the existing laws related to OSEC, it is also indubitable that said laws are replete with gaps and inadequacies. CWC agrees that we should keep abreast of the complexity of OSEC given the digital platform it carries and it being a transnational game. Thus, it is opportune time that we strengthen our laws related to OSEC, namely the RA 9775, RA 9208 as expanded by RA 10364, RA 10175, RA 7610, and other ancillary laws. CWC proposes for the amendment of these laws to be able to strengthen and broaden our laws to enhance law enforcement capacity, increase effectiveness of child protection services. There is extreme urgency to ensure that our laws are sufficiently implemented. Further, CWC agrees and reiterates that the efforts in addressing should not only focus on prevention, but also on protection and rehabilitation of children. CWC envisions to be the focal interagency government body providing dynamic leadership and ensuring a child-friendly and child-centered society where every child fully enjoys his or her rights. On this account, we express our unequivocal support in the pursuit to fight against OSEC, and we commit to positively partake in the subsequent efforts against OSEC. Again, thank you very much po.
DSWD is next, ma'am.
May we ask Director Maricel Deloria of DSWD? Is she here, Comsec?
Yes, Madam Chair. Good afternoon po.
Before you begin, ma'am, can I just acknowledge the presence of our members, si Kong Raymond Mendoza and Kong Tyrone Agabas. Good afternoon. Thank you. Please proceed, Ma'am Director Maricel Deloria of DSWD. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. Good afternoon po ulit. The Department of Social Welfare and Development po, Madam Chair, being a member of the IACAP and IACAT um, supports the House Resolution number 1118 po. The department also submitted a position paper, no, which includes recommendations on the specific provisions of the bill. However, Madam Chair, if I may, just highlight po yung aming mga major recommendations po. 10 points lang po ito, Madam Chair. Number 1 po is to include po a provision that will strengthen the IACAP through the allocation po of line budget in the GAA that will allow the member agencies to implement programs that will mitigate, prevent, and respond to OSEC po, OSEC cases, no? Especially programs that will develop, enhance school-based protective and response measures, no? And develop capacity of both the teaching and non-teaching personnel to protect and provide immediate response to victim survivors. Number 2, Madam Chair, is to strengthen the council po by appointing an executive director similar to other councils, Madam Chair, as mandated by other laws, no? And institutionalize perhaps a separate office with a council secretariat po, who will be able to effectively coordinate, monitor, oversee, and provide support to the operations of the council. Number 3, Madam Chair, is to strengthen and improve the detection through machine learning applications po, and online or web-based reporting of online sexual OSEC, no, of minors for immediate identification and rescue of child victims. Madam Chair, in the past po, meron po tayong tinatawag na Philippine Anti-Trafficking Database, yung PATD, Madam Chair. Kaya lang baka hindi na siya ganun ka-relevant to the times. Baka either mag-develop ng bago or i-revise ito. But kasi, Madam Chair, the intention of PATD then was to be able to effectively monitor and ensure appropriate interventions, no, are implemented to address the needs of the victim survivors as well as the families po. The PATD then was a shared web-based reporting system, Madam Chair. This was shared between among 3 agencies na po, PNP, DOJ, and DSWD. So maybe we could have a similar online or web-based monitoring system, Madam Chair. Number 4 po is to require the internet service providers, no, or the ISPs and internet content hosts to retain data for cases of OSEC, no, and other crime, cybercrime related cases. Number 5, Madam Chair, is we also propose to require stricter procedures for money transfer from facilities and other financial institutions for claiming money remittances in order to trace customers and facilitators of OSEC. Number 6, we also propose, Madam Chair, to harmonize all programs and services provided to victim survivors. No? Perhaps we could align all programs of the government agencies as well as the non-government agencies. No? Also along with the National Response Plan on OSEC and National Plan of Action for Children. 7 is we propose to consider promoting and enhancing family-based protection, prevention, and response mechanisms by educating the parents and balancing privacy and safety of children. we also propose to strengthen the provision of appropriate intervention and assistance, and particularly, Madam Chair, the compensation, no? Compensation to victim survivors. Lastly, along capability building po for responders and service providers, we could also include, Madam Chair, provision on structured training program for frontliners, prosecutors, judges, and on digital forensic literacy, and for social workers as well along case management of process. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you very much po.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Maricel Deloria of the Department of Social Welfare and Development. COMSEC, do we have any other resource speakers?
No more for today, Madam Chair. We have reserved, it's already 3 o'clock. We have reserved the rest of our invitees for the next meeting po, subject to your approval. We have a list. But our guests for today might want to recommend someone to be with us next meeting then po.
Definitely, we will formally invite OCC, no, COMSEC, as
Yes, ma'am.
the DOJ. Thank you very much to our resource speakers. Do we have any questions from our members for our resource speakers?
Madam Chair, si Rep. Arlene, yes, Madam Chair, Rep. Arlene of Manila.
Proceed.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, there will be a next hearing, tama po ba?
Yes,
for OSEC.
Tama.
So there, sorry, Madam Chair, medyo mahina yung yung reception ko. There will be a next, I believe there will be a next hearing for this for OSEC. So I can reserve my questions, and I can reserve also my manifestations for the next hearing. Tama po ba?
Congresswoman Rose, we can furnish you copies of the presentations today, so you can prepare for your questions in the next committee meeting.
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So I will reserve my manifestation for the next hearing na lang po. Thank you.
Kong Rosas. We can continue with the open forum maybe on our next committee hearing. So I'd like to thank everyone, especially our resource persons. Yes, Congressman Toff de Venecia.
Yeah, could I just ask a few clarificatory questions to Attorney Coronel, to Ma'am Coronel of DOJ?
Yes, please proceed, Kong Toff.
Yeah, there was one slide that you showed where parang it was like a line graph, and between 2016 and 2018, there were some spikes and drops in the number of OSEC cases. So have we ascertained the reasons as to why there are certain months of the year when it's, so high and then it goes low?
Thank you for that question po. I think for those years that there are certain cases that indicates a lower number of identified OSEC cases, that's actually the usual type that we see. So there are certain months that cases identified there are cases identified that are lesser than the usual than the latter number of months in a year. But the way that we measure whether there's an increase is by considering a whole year, Your Honor po. So if we see that there's a steady increase within an X number of year as compared to the previous year, then we can safely conclude that there was an increase, especially if it spans several number of years from, let's say, 5 years in a row. But in terms of data that we receive in IACAT, it usually happens po that there are some months that the number of cases dips, and then it increases again. But as a whole, if you would see it, it's really increasing po. For the explanation for that, it's we can get back to you on that if there's a specific explanation. But in terms of data gathering, ganun po talaga yung nakikita namin na information coming from our database, Your Honor.
I want to ask, like, in terms of like the expertise that we have that we're able to access, and study, investigate, are we able to work with, anthropologists, or just to get a better sense of why it persists within our culture that such thing as OSEC has become rampant? I mean, it seems to infer na obviously there is a pervasive culture or incidents of poverty that leads to uh, the rise of OSEC in the country. But are there other cultural indicators? And if so, that sort of expertise or uh, competency or criterion being assessed with regard to our studies of the country?
Yes po, yes po. Actually, the usual studies that are coming out for OSEC is really more on quantitative data. So for the suspicious transaction reports, for the IB addresses. One study though that we know of and we supported also is that the one conducted by the De La Salle Research Institute, supported by the UNICEF. And that is a qualitative study which attempted to really study OSEC in terms of cases. So trying to come up with the norms, trying to better understand how this happens, what is the mindset of the victim and the customer and the facilitator, what pushed them to commit these crimes. I believe that study is already in the final stages or can be shared also, maybe in the next committee hearing, but it's also a very significant source or rich data source for better understanding OSEC in the Philippines. That study is qualitative in nature, so it really focuses on just a number of cases and really trying to do a deep dive on how OSEC happens in those particular cases po. So right now I don't have the the findings of that study, but we were very much involved during the data gathering phases of that. But what I know is in the initial stages that or in the initial findings that they were able to share with us, it's really a very comprehensive study, a qualitative study on OSEC, which can point us to really better understand how this happens. The usual indicators are there, poverty, with the pandemic happening last year, the vulnerabilities were heightened definitely. But we can take a look at that again, Your Honors, and again pinpoint what are the other factors that really contributed into this really alarming rise of OSEC in the Philippines. We can definitely share that update with you if that document is already available for sharing. From our end, what we can share already is the IJM study that we cited earlier in our report, as well as the AMLC studies on OSEC as well. Thank you.
I think Madam Chair, Ma'am Coronel hit the nail on the head. We will, I think the committee will benefit from a presentation of qualitative data also on the issue. Cultural factors that contribute. I mean, what exactly is the mindset of an OSEC perpetrator, and how can these be addressed, so that it can be, we can finally defeat this OSEC in the country. And Madam Chair, a final question, which is in response to one of the slides also of the DOJ, is that the reason as to why the internet service providers are not able to comply with Section 9 of RA 9775 is that the disabling technology of the ISPs to aid in identifying those IP addresses that access OSEC services that are being peddled by these predators is very costly. The disabling technology now is very costly. So can we just ask, like, how expensive is expensive? And if it's such a burden for ISPs, can't the state give some kind of subsidy to the internet service providers so that they can comply with the law if it's in fact the priority of the state anyway?
Um, yes po. Well, I don't have we were not given the exact number or the exact price or how costly it is, but that is what they have said in the several forums that we have attended together with them, from the private sector, from the ISP representatives. I think this also relates to that recommendation from the I think the Child Rights Network on the implementation of the IPv6. I think that is what they were also trying to pinpoint, is that since the Philippines is still under IPv4, a specific IP address will not really tell you that this is a one-to-one correspondence, so that IP address is immediately related to a certain perpetrator, because an IP address will host several people in one instance. So it can only give you, let's say, a specific area where that OSEC happened. But when you do IPv6, everyone will have a one-to-one correspondence. I think that is what they're trying to pinpoint in relation to the costliness of this platform. If they do blocking or filtering of these types of images, they would have to do it in, like, disabling the whole platform, rather than identifying which IP addresses are streaming these types of images. Again, they did not mention how costly this is, but that is the word that they use. It's really costly.
Right. Well, Madam Chair, perhaps you can hear from the ISPs in the next hearing. And I will reserve the other questions for the next hearing as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, Rep. Arlene, again.
Please proceed, Dr. Arlene.
Yes, Madam Chair. Point of inquiry lang, Madam Chair. Nag-file po kasi kami ng House Resolution 1313 seeking to investigate the alarming increase of OSEC cases. Of course, kasi kahit kami, parang it is really important to strengthen the actions to battle this upsurge of OSEC cases na nangyayari sa atin. Na-include po ba itong House Resolution 1313 sa mga pag-uusapan natin, Madam Chair?
Arlene, yung House Resolution 1313 was, I think, referred to another committee by the Committee on Rules, no, COMSEC?
It's still with the Committee on Rules together with your other resolution also, ma'am, and OSEC. There are still actually 3 House resolutions which are still with the Committee on Rules as of this time po. That's why we were not able to include it, as we do not have yet any jurisdiction over it po.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, siguro ang maganda ay i-follow up sa Committee on Rules yung mga iba pang mga House resolutions. So, yung ating mga nagsasalita ay po pwedeng makita nila, yung mga resource persons natin ay makita nila at ma-review din nila yung iba pang mga House resolutions na nakasalang. So, Madam Chair, if it's not too much, para po siguro pwedeng i-follow up if it's possible na gawin na ng Committee on Rules na i-refer ito sa Committee on Women and Children, Committee on Children. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yun lang.
Definitely, Kong Arlene, as I mentioned a while ago, no, yung House Resolution 1313, House Resolution 999 of Kong Fidel Nograles, and also yung House Resolution 1336, which is filed by this representation and also by Kong Majority Leader Romualdez and Kong De Venecia, is still in the Committee on Rules, but we will definitely follow it up na ma-referred na sa committee natin as soon as possible. So thank you, Kong Arlene. Thank you. We'll definitely do that. Do we have any
Salamat, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Sorry. Sige po, sir. Sorry po.
Please proceed.
Yeah, Madam Chair, would it be
I'm sorry.
would it be possible also to invite in the next meeting maybe some local government units or even League of Municipalities or League of Cities? Because I'm sure our LGUs are doing their job also, especially they're on the ground, so that we may know their challenges, and at the same time, kung meron pong mga best practices, baka it can be considered by our members, no, to be institutionalized also, so that we be more effective. And at the same time, Madam Chair, baka the leagues can also come up with a resolution, since this is a big problem and a very urgent problem, so that the member LGUs will be able to address them even as we're discussing this resolution and maybe future bills related to OSEC. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Kong Joet. That's duly noted, COMSEC. Kindly, make sure that we invite the LGUs, especially siguro yung mga with the help of the DOJ in mga areas that are hotbeds, no, for OSEC. So, COMSEC?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any...
Yes, ma'am. I think Attorney Mitch of UNICEF has something to add to the question of Kong De Venecia.
Attorney Mitch?
Hi, Your Honor. With your permission po. In addition to what Attorney Coronel mentioned earlier po on your first question on the cultural and norms, in the said study, the national study, we also identified the culture of silence, the culture of the mindset of the parents that children are their properties. And although it's not true all the time, the mindset that there is no harm anyway contributes to the proliferation of this crime. And as mentioned by Attorney Coronel, we've conducted the national study on online sexual abuse and exploitation in the Philippines with the De La Salle University. We've also conducted, as mentioned by Ms. Fortich earlier from PLAN, a social norm study, which we will also be expanding, and we will do a longitudinal study to further understand these norms that prevails, that makes OSAEC prevalent in our culture, in our society. And on the next question on the role of the ISP, I think another issue that the ISPs are arguing is the perceived conflict with the data privacy law. And what are really another question that we wanted to answer on that specific provision is, what are really the available technologies that could be used by ISPs? And another question is it really the ISPs who can really block, or is it the social media companies? So those are other additional discussion points for Section 9 of 9775. And we would really like to hear from DOJOOC and the DICT on this matter, probably during the next hearing po. And we will also share some of the highlights of our studies next meeting. Thank you, Your Honor.
Attorney Mitch, thank you very much. Do we have any more comments or questions? If not, we can continue our open forum on our next meeting. We will inform our members and our stakeholders. We thank you for coming over today. We shall further discuss this resolution in our succeeding meetings. Please submit your specific recommendations before the next meeting so we can consolidate before that. If there are no other matters to discuss, I hope to be the first to greet you all a happy New Year, and also Pit Senior sa inyong lahat. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
I second the motion, Madam Chair.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Congratulations.
Thank you.